Now, back to the Edward Snowden of the New Testament, the Christian whistleblower, Jeffrey Daugherty.
Rocky Stucci just told me I'm hot, made my day. Hey, I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower. The Edward Snowden of the New Testament, I remember when I first got called that, I didn't know if I liked it or not, but the more times I hear Veronica say it, the better it sounds. And you know what? It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to have some guts. Somebody's got to have some intestinal fortitude. Somebody's got to have some testicular fortitude. And it's certainly not coming from these evangelists. It's certainly not coming from these fathers, brothers, sisters, mothers. No, it's got to be some guy that's been through hell to get a clear glimpse of heaven. Hey, that's profound. I need to write that down. Sometimes it's only the guy who's been through hell that can get a clear glimpse of heaven. I am going to write that down because that just came to me. Give me just a second, folks. Only a guy that's been through hell can get a clear glimpse of heaven. Wow. I like that. All righty. So if you listened to the Coast to Coast the other night when I was on, we were talking about curious Christmas conundrums, and it was more than just, a catchy title for a book. If you remember, in the New Testament, in the Christmas story, I had like 4 or 5 different conundrums. Number one was, why is there UFO, ET, and alien imagery dominating the Christmas story? The literal rendering of the Mary story says that she was overtaken as in an attack. She was immobilized by an overpowering power. Her womb was seized, and she was something, not the word for baby, not the word for child, not the word infant, something was placed in her womb. Man, if you audit the New Testament and if you look at that with 21st century eyes, you say, man, that sounds an awful lot like a alien visitation and artificial insemination. It sounds like just a bunch of the same stuff that we hear on IPBN and other places like this. And like George asked me, do you think Jesus was an ET? Well, I don't think Yeshua was an ET, but I do think that somebody really wants us to believe that he was, and that alien agenda is part of the agenda to take the unique message of Yeshua and bury it, to take the unique position of Yeshua and jam him back into the pantheon, just like all the other gods, because the second conundrum was, why is the Christmas story filled with plagiarisms from other religions? Now, I know Christians try to deny this, and those rat bastard, lying, cheating, dirty, rotten, good-for-nothing, sniveling, lying apologists, and that's really not fair to sniveling liars to compare them to apologists, but they all said, well, no, it's not really paganism. It is paganism. Do you know there's probably 100? Well, let's be conservative. There are easily 50. There are easily 50 gods that were born on December 25th, in mangers. Wise men visited them that were led by a star. They were proclaimed saviors that would remove the sins of their people, which is key as we go into the born supremacy. They were protected by kings that wanted to kill them and later became saviors and preachers. There's 50 of them. In fact, saviors born on December 25th in mangers is so ubiquitous as to be cliche. And every one of these were hundreds and thousands of years before Jesus. That's not coincidence, folks. That's plagiarism. And the question is not if it's true. The question is why is it true? Why did they do that? Why did they write that? Well, they wrote that he was, or made it appear that he was the child of an extraterrestrial, that he himself was an extraterrestrial, to call question upon the great, unique teachings of Yeshua. They made him look like just another god in the pantheon to bury and take away the unique teachings of Yeshua. And then, I didn't even talk about the shepherds out in the field also having brilliant entities come upon them as in an attack and freeze them, incapacitate them in blinding columns of light. That wasn't last week's X-Files show. That's not coming up on the new X-Files. That was in the New Testament. Why was Mary involved in a scenario that looks exactly like an alien ET abduction? Why were the shepherds involved in what it looked exactly like alien ET abduction? Why was every single distinguishing characteristic of the birth of Jesus, why was that plagiarized from pagan religions? Other religions, and I don't use pagan as a bad word, it's just a descriptive word, other religions. And then, why is in the New Testament, there is 8,000 verses in the New Testament, 8,000. You know how many verses describe the birth of Jesus? 53. Out of 8,000 verses, only 53 were about the most momentous event in human history, the birth of Jesus Christ. Weird, my friends. Even the 4 Gospels that are about Jesus. Guess how many of the 4 Gospels decided that they would talk about the birth of Jesus? I'll wait. 2. Only half the Gospels even mention the birth of Jesus. That's weird, man. And then 2 of the Gospels, as many as ignore the birth of Jesus, record the words that John the Baptist was the greatest man ever born of a woman. Now let me get this straight. Mary was a woman. Jesus was born to Mary. But John the Baptist is the greatest person ever born of a woman? But I thought Jesus was the greatest. The Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first, the last. But he's actually the second to John the Baptist. Man, that's confusing. That's what you call a conundrum. How do you explain that? How do you explain that? Oh, you see, you have to understand that. No, just tell me what the language says, bro. Don't give me your Bible college crap. Give me an explanation of the language. And then, how about the Apostle John? And this wasn't just any apostle. I mean, there's only 12 of them, so if you're an apostle, man, I mean, you're pretty tight with Yeshua. But John was called the apostle that Yeshua loved. When you see the paintings of the Last Supper, John's the one lying back on the breast of Yeshua. I mean, they were buds. They were bros. They were tight. And John wrote 60 years after all the other apostles quit writing, 40 years after Paul quit his devilish scribblings. And he used all that perspective. He used all that time. And then he wrote that Yeshua wasn't born in Bethlehem, that he came a full-grown man. That's right. He wrote that Yeshua came a full-grown man, wasn't born in Bethlehem. So if you work it backwards, John, the last writer of the New Testament, says Yeshua was born a fully grown man. And then he also goes on to say those that teach that he did not arrive as a full-grown man are teaching a doctrine against Christ or an antichrist doctrine. And then you see why, that's why John the Baptist was the greatest man ever born of women, because Yeshua wasn't born of a woman. He just showed up and manifested himself as a full-grown man. So John was born of a woman. He announced, it makes perfect sense now. That's why John the Baptist is the greatest man ever born of a woman, because Yeshua wasn't born of a woman. And that explains why they had to make up all of the paganism to take away from that unique story of what Yeshua did. And that explains why they got to make up all the story about him being an ET to try to take away from the fact that the brother just showed up large and in charge. And that's what we talked about on Coast to Coast. And I got a book about that, Curious Christmas Conundrums. ebook and paperback, jeffreydarty.com, christianwhistleblower.com, if you want to get all of the scriptures for that. Or if you're really intrepid and really cheap, you can just go back and listen to all of our broadcasts, because we've covered it all over a number of broadcasts over a number of weeks and months. So we get to the born supremacy. And what are you talking about, Jeff? Why born supremacy? And of course, it's a crafty little take on those movies with Matt Damon, the Born Identity, the Born Supremacy, the Born whatever. I guess there was 3 or 4 of them. And they were actually pretty good movies. But how does it relate to what we're talking about here today? So this whole thing about being born in Bethlehem, this whole thing about being born with wise men visiting you, this whole thing about being born and being born in a manger and being proclaimed a king, this whole thing, it's not done, and it wasn't crafted, and it wasn't created just off the cuff. They had a specific plan. They had a specific reason. They had specific ideas of how and why they were going to do this. So you have to wonder if John the Apostle taught that Yeshua came to the world a fully grown man and did not just come as a baby. And I guess, I wasn't going to do it, but I think that we probably should go ahead and take a look at those scriptures that show John teaching that Jesus came, slap my face, that Yeshua came as a full-grown man and not as a baby in Bethlehem. So I wasn't going to do that, but rarely do I do what I think I'm going to do when I get on the show. So, this is just another day in the life of the Christian whistleblower. So let's take a look at that. And it's not fair to make you say, for me to say you got to pay $5 to hear this. And I don't feel right doing that. I spent so many years begging money, raising money. Man, I could take an offering. I could rack it up, man. And that's one of the reasons why churches brought me in, is because I was so good at doing that kind of stuff. And it's hard for me even today to ask for help and to do things like that. It's very, very tough, very, very difficult for me. But anyway, I don't want to charge you $5 to hear this story, so we're gonna go ahead and talk about it. And few people really even understand. And of course, these apologists and these scholars, they're not going to tell you, those rat bastards. What Rocky Stucci calls a cockroach, I call a rat bastard. So it's a synonym. They're really the same type of things. But few people understand that the Apostle John waited 50 years after all the other disciples had completed their writings. That's interesting. All the other apostles wrote, but John. John didn't write. He was cool. He was fine, just letting those other dudes do that work, and he just was chilling. He was, just being behind the scenes helping out. And then he even waited 30 years after rat bastard Paul got finished writing to pen his words. And when he did decide to write his words, he said that he was bearing witness. And in the literal rendering, that means that he was testifying. He was giving evidence. John told us he was very reticent to write. And when he did write, he tells us that he wasn't just writing, but he was giving legal testimony. It was like a trial. He was swearing himself under oath. And then he goes on to say that the testimony is true. And in the literal rendering, that means that it's undeniable. It cannot be hidden. When fully tested, it's ultimately shown to be fact. So John was saying, look, I'm going to testify about some stuff that's going to blow y'all's minds. You ever wonder what the plural of y'all was? Well, that's all y'all. So John says, I'm going to blow all y'all's minds. And I know it's going to be hard for you to believe. I know it's going to sound crazy. But once you study it, once you fully test it, it will ultimately be shown to be fact. So what he really said was, in the literal language, I'm testifying and giving evidence to bring things to light that can no longer be hidden. Things that even though they sound crazy, when they're fully tested, they'll ultimately be shown to be true. Something big was going on. John found himself in the middle of something, and he was giving us the goods on it. And what he wrote really is staggering. And we're going to get right to the fact where him talking about Yeshua coming into the world as a full-grown man. And we know that he identified Yeshua as the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was with God in the beginning. So he identified Yeshua as one of the Elohim of Genesis 1:1. We know that. Yeshua was an Elohim. Yeshua was one of the creator gods of Genesis 1, chapter 1. And then he goes on in the first chapter of John, the 14th verse, to say, and this word that was with God, this word that was God, this word that was with the gods in the beginning, this word that was an Elohim, he became flesh, and he dwelt among us. And I'm reading King James Version. I'm reading Hillary Rodham Clinton version here. We beheld his glory, the glory of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Who was it that became flesh? Who was it that the apostles were checking out? Who was it that was the only begotten of the Godhead, the only one that actually came down into physical, fleshly manifestation? Only one fits that description. That's Yeshua. Yeshua was an Elohim, one of the gods of creation. And John says that he came and manifest himself in flesh. Well, John talks even more implicitly and emphatically about this. Really more emphatically is what I was trying to say. And when he said that the Word was made flesh there in John 1, what it says literally is that the Word emerged and became, transitioning from one point to another into a human being. Literally rendered. The Word emerged, transitioned from one realm into another, becoming a human being. John's giving dramatic and amazing testimony about the Word, the Elohim, the Word, transitioning and becoming a human being. I mean, John just told us that one of the gods, one of the Elohim, came into our world in the form of men. And it's very, very striking that John used the word for a fully grown human being. When it says the Word was made flesh, let me stop yelling a little bit if I can so you can just kind of pick this up and not think it's your dad hollering at you. What John said was that when the Word became flesh, when the Word became flesh, the Word became a fully grown human being. For you scholars out there, that is Strong's G4561. Now, he didn't use the word baby, which is Strong's G1025, to describe the manifestation of Yeshua in the flesh. John said that Yeshua, the Word, came, strictly textually speaking, as a fully grown human being. If we were to literally render that, it would say, and the Word became a fully grown human being. The word for baby was there. This is 90 years, 40, 30. It's at least 70 years, 70 years after Bethlehem allegedly occurred. So John would have known about it. And if the Word came as a baby, then why didn't John say the Word came as a baby? Why did John say the Word came as a fully grown human being? From a strictly textual basis, we have to conclude that the Word manifested himself as a full-grown man. We have no textual reason to deny that. The only thing that would cause us to say, no, we're going to say baby, because of the Bethlehem stories. Remember, a story full of alien imagery, a story plagiarized from other religions, and a story that was so shocking, so embarrassing, so ludicrous, pick your adjective, that only 2 of the gospel writers held their nose and wrote about it, and only 53 verses out of 8,000. We're starting to see reasons why only 53 out of 8,000 describe it. We're starting to see reasons why only half the Gospels describe it, because it was either added later by translators or it was put in reluctantly by Bible writers to get the rest of their message through the Roman censor so that people could see it and understand it. But if Bethlehem was true and the word came as a baby, John saying the word came as a man is a contradiction. Now, a lot of times in the New Testament, if you see something that looks like a contradiction, you just keep reading a little bit more and you'll see the contradiction resolve itself. So John then said that the word who came as a full-grown man dwelt among us. If you literally render that, it says, pitched his tent alongside us. So the word who came as a fully grown man pitched his tent alongside us. Hilly Rotten Clinton version says, and we beheld his glory. Literal rendering says, he came as a full-grown man, he pitched his tent alongside us, and we looked upon his honor, his glory. We looked upon his divine quality, and we beheld the unspoken manifestation of the gods, the glory and the splendor. The word emerged, transitioned from one realm to another, took on adult human form. He pitched his tent alongside us, and we looked upon his honor, renown, and glory. We beheld his essential divine essence and saw the manifestation of the splendor of the gods. You put those words of John alongside the Bethlehem accounts, and it just doesn't match up. You're left saying, how could this possibly be? Well, there's only 2 possibilities. Number 1, the Bethlehem stories about the birth of Jesus didn't exist at the time that John wrote. That's possibility number 1. If John hadn't seen them, he obviously would not have written about them. If they were added later by translators, that could explain this omission. If John did know of the stories, man, there's no way he would have ignored it. His integrity would have compelled him to address how they paralleled all the numerous stories of other gods in embarrassingly exact detail. Later addition by other writers could also help explain why there's so little of the information and why when you read it, it doesn't line up with the style and method of writing into where it's inserted. You can almost see it's almost like they wrote with a different colored pen. And I actually had some idiot, and idiot's probably too kind of a word, write me and say, well, obviously you're wrong because those words are printed in red. Red, he said. Oh, I'm like, oh my gosh, if they're in red, that settles it. Can you believe? Anyway. It's a logical absurdity that an event that looms as large in the theology of Christianity as the virgin birth would command only less than 1%, actually 0.666%, which is kind of interesting, of the verses in the New Testament. The comparisons of the style, the grammar, the word usage, the theme and feel of those passages certainly opens up the possibility that they were from other writers. Second possibility, and this is the one that I think is true. I can't prove that the first one's not true, but this is the one that I think is true. This is the one, in my opinion, is the best explanation of all the facts. So I'll throw that out there for what it's worth. John was fully aware of the writings. John was fully aware of the Bethlehem stories. John was fully aware of that contradictory nature, and he refuted them thoroughly. And the truth of his refutation has been hidden from us for over 2,000 years by the rat bastard Hillary Rodham Clinton. Not really Hillary, but from the Roman censors and from King James and his merry men. And it's interesting that the Republicans among us and the conservative right wing among us that won't question anything about the King James Version Man, it's a well-known fact that King James was as queer as a $3 bill. King James was a blatant homosexual. Personally, doesn't mean a hill of beans to me, right or left. I don't care that he was homosexual. Doesn't matter to me whatsoever. But it cracks me up that these conservative, right-wing, fundamentalist, glory to God, hallelujah, Christians will swear up and down and do anything they can to bless God in the King James Version, written, edited, vetted, controlled, and published by a homosexual king. That's what you call irony, folks. So I think John was aware of it, and I think John did write about it, and I think that the truth of it has been hidden for over 2,000 years. And the Word was made flesh, John said, and dwelt among us. And John, being aware of the baby Jesus stories, made sure that when he wrote, he said that the Word came into being as a fully grown human. Again, word G4561, always applied everywhere in Scripture. Every other place in Scripture this word is used, it's applied to a full-grown person. The Word was made flesh. That Word was made flesh. Every single place in the New Testament it is applied to a grown adult. Never to a baby. Never to an infant. Never to even a small child. Folks, John knew Greek. John knew Hebrew. John knew how to write. If John would have meant baby, he would have used baby. He would have used the word briefos, G1025. If he had meant baby, he could have used nephios, G3516. If he'd have meant young child, he could have used paidion, G3813. The text shows, like Luke before him, John pointedly avoided the use of these words. John wasn't stupid. John wasn't ignorant. John chose his words very carefully. He did not say that the Word became a young child. He did not say the Word became a baby. He did not say the Word became an infant. John said the Word was made a full-grown human being. G4561 in every place in the New Testament, other than this, where that word is used, it's a walking, talking, strutting man or woman. What you gonna do with that, apologist? What you gonna do with that, pastor? What you gonna do with that, priest? What you gonna do when the truth breaks out all over you, brother? I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. We'll be right back for our final segment.
Show your thanks by helping them through Wounded Warrior Project.
The person who went direct is by far not the same person that came back.
I was very isolated. I didn't want to talk to anybody.
I felt like there was no one there. There was no hope.
There's this feeling of brokenness, not being the person that I used to be. I had thoughts of ending my life.
Your gift today of $19 a month can help us provide the programs and services desperately needed by our wounded service members.
When a person is scared and confused and alone, Wounded Warrior Project has been there to help them.
The needs aren't going away. Post-traumatic stress disorder is not going away.
The Wounded Warriors that are out there need help. They're going to be around for years to come.
Call or go online with a pledge of $19 a month and you'll receive this Wounded Warrior Project blanket.
I'm able to do a lot more now. I've come a long way.
It's so much emotional healing that goes on.
It's great to know that there's an organization out there who's willing and able to help.
The job of helping thousands of our wounded warriors rebuild their lives is massive. That's why your gift of $19 a month is so important. Please, call or go online right now.
And now, back to the Edward Snowden of the New Testament, the Christian whistleblower, Jeffrey Daugherty.
So what you gonna do when the truth of the audited New Testament breaks out all over you, brother? Man, we're hot tonight. We're on fire. We're rocking, we're rolling, we're wall to wall, we're treetop tall, coming to you. Man, we don't fool around here. We just break it down. We break it down, and this is for big boys and girls. If you can't handle it, you know what? Best you go sit at the kiddie table. Sometimes, if you're not a big dog, you just need to stay on the porch. And this is off the porch in the middle of the field, running and gunning, super hot, grown-up, mature stuff. So if it's not for you, that's okay. Not everybody's a big dog. And you know, there's not just male big dogs. There's also female big dogs. All right? And we're using big dogs in a very positive, reverential sense here. So, and there's a meme that floats around every now and then. I never grab it. It's a wolf, and of course, he's kind of pissed off. But he's like, I may not be as strong as, the elephant. I may not be as the king of the jungle like the lion, but I don't ever perform in their circuses. And man, that's what it's all about. We are not the most popular radio show in the world. I'm not going to all of the big conferences. MUFON won't have me. But you know what? I will not appear in your circus, brother. I will not appear in your circus, sister. I will not balance a ball on my nose. I won't jump through a hoop. I won't let you put your head in my mouth. You put that thing in my mouth, oh, you may be drawing back a bloody nub. We're wolves, not wolves in sheep's clothing, just straight up a wolf pack coming at you. And the wolves are at the gates, brother. The wolves are at the doors. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But John said that the Word became flesh. The Word became a full-grown dude. You know what? Even the Muslims in the Quran say that when Yeshua came in the world, he was preaching. Of course, they want to say that he was in the cradle preaching, but of course we know that the vocal cords of a newborn child aren't sufficient to allow a speech. But if the Word was made flesh, a full-grown man, of course he's talking and preaching. Even the Muslims know what you stupid, ignorant, proud Christians won't admit. How bad is it when the Muslims got more truth than you do? Ouch! That hurt. So the Word came into being. The Word became a full-grown person. And then he became a full-grown person and dwelt among us. What does dwelt mean? Rocky was making fun of me for putting the strong words out there like G, which means Greek, 4637. But you can go on the Strong's Concordance online and you can put in, it has a search, and you just put in G 4637. You hit enter, and all of a sudden it means to immediately enter into unbroken communion with. So the Word became a full-grown man, and we immediately entered into unbroken communion with him. How many of you have ever hung out with a baby? You are not entering into full, unbroken community with a damn baby. I just hung out with my grandkids. One of them is almost 2. There's a 2, 3. There's a 2, there's a 3. And there's like a 5 and there's like a 7. You can't enter into immediate, unbroken communication with a 7-year-old. The Bethlehem story was a lie. It's a lie, Stevie. Nacho Libre. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it. It was a lie. The Word became a fully grown person. The Word came into the world as a full-grown man. And we immediately entered into unbroken communion with him, walking with him, talking with him, reasoning with him. This is in dramatic opposition to the baby Jesus stories, and in my studied opinion, intentionally so. And remember, even the Quran talks about Yeshua coming into the world speaking. Is that an additional clue? And the Word was made manifest, John 1:1 and 2. The Word was made manifest and revealed. You know what that means? G 53:19. I'll stop with that. You get the idea. So the Word appeared as a fully grown man. We were able to walk, talk, interact with him fully as soon as he arrived. And the Word was made manifest, which means to enter in, to walk, to take steps. Either you, Christian, have to say, when Yeshua was born as a baby, he was able to jump up out of the crib, to walk and take steps. Hallelujah! Are you ready to teach that? Are you ready to teach that? Because that's what the New Testament says. That the Word entered in, walking and taking steps. How do you explain that? See, that's the one problem with Coast to Coast, is you can't get deep like this on Coast to Coast. So the Word came as a fully grown man. We entered into full communion with him, walking, or talking, rapping with him. And then he was walking and taking steps too. Man, and you know what? I'm not the smartest guy in the world. Why has no one else said this until December 23rd, 2015? Because no one else had the guts to do it. No one else had nothing to lose like I do at this point. And the Word came into being, a fully grown man, and immediately entered into unbroken communion with us, walking and talking among us and showing himself fully. John confronted the baby Jesus stories. John taught Yeshua entered the world as a full-grown bro, bypassed infancy, bypassed childhood. That's the only conclusion possible if we limit ourselves exclusively to the text and the text alone. And you are worthless if you can't prove what you believe by the text and the text alone. I don't care what your mama says. I don't care what your grandmama before her taught. I don't care what your preacher, pastor, priest, spirit guide, guru, girlfriend, I don't care what any of them say. If you can't show me chapter and verse, then you can take that crap down the road, because we ain't buying crazy here. We're all stocked up here. This is a clear and direct answer to the baby Jesus Bethlehem accounts. And what's more, it's a damning apostolic refutation of them. And of course, it makes it a lot easier to understand the words that among those born of women, there was none greater than John the Baptist. Suddenly, it's not puzzling anymore. Suddenly, John the Baptist is clearly not greater than Yeshua. Suddenly, all the confusion's resolved when the Apostle John clearly shows us Yeshua was not born of a woman. John the Baptist is the greatest man ever born from a woman. And by the way, it was Yeshua that said that, and I tend to lean strongly towards his opinion when he says things. But that's just me. Maybe you're smarter than Yeshua. Maybe your church knows more than Yeshua. Maybe your priest, maybe your pastor, or maybe you are just so damn smart that you know more than Yeshua. Well, good luck, and next, why don't you go out and walk on some water and show me how good you are. So what do we make, then, of the Bethlehem stories? Well, guess what? John doesn't leave us hanging. And aren't you glad that I decided not to leave you hanging? See, this is worth $5. I should have no problem at all saying it's $5 for the ebook, JeffreyDarty.com, ChristianWhistleBlower.com, and have gone on and talked about the born supremacy. But, somebody told me I'm wounded. I went to a spiritual fair this weekend, which was actually really cool. And there was a guy that does spiritual nutrition, and he was a really smart guy. And he told me, he says, you're wounded in the realm of finances, but I can see you have plenty of money. Tell me what's going on. And I chuckled because he hit it right on the head. He said, I told him, well, I used to be an evangelist, used to, beg a lot of money. And now when I have legitimate things and, I have a hard time asking for help. And he was right on. So here we are and we're working through that. But John helps us address the hugest, if you will, Christmas conundrum of them all. And not only did John teach that Yeshua came as a full-grown man, walking, talking, speaking, he also taught that everybody that teaches that he came as a baby is teaching of the spirit of Antichrist. Yeah, I said it. 1 John chapter 4, verse number 3. George W. Bush version says, "And every spirit that does not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is that spirit of Antichrist, whereof you have heard that it should come, and even now already is in the world." Let's break this down in our remaining time. George W. Bush version, every spirit that does not confess. Confess means to publicly declare. So every person that doesn't publicly declare that Yeshua is come in the flesh. Is come means arrived. In the flesh, we've already seen, means a full human, man as he appears, how a man is presented to view, external appearance and condition of a man, being able to make decisions for oneself. Are you hearing this, folks? Every person that doesn't publicly declare that Yeshua arrived as a full human man, appearing as a man, how a man is presented to view, with the external appearance and condition of a man, being able to make decisions for one's own self. Every person that doesn't publicly declare that, is under the spirit of Antichrist. I didn't say it. John the Apostle said it. The plain, literal language says, every spirit that does not publicly declare that Yeshua the Anointed arrived as a full-grown human, looking and appearing as a man, walking, talking, and able to make decisions for himself, is of Antichrist. Now again, if you've been listening to me long enough, you understand that Antichrist doesn't mean pin the tail on the Antichrist, Damien the Omen, great boogeyman of the end times. But the plain literal language removes any doubt that John is clearly teaching that the proponents of the baby Jesus Bethlehem birth accounts are of the spirit of Antichrist. Now again, textually, Antichrist just means against the anointed. Antichrist, against the anointed. In other words, in opposition to Yeshua. We're not talking about the boogeyman. We're not talking about Hollywood. We're not talking about fear-mongering religion. We're simply witnessing the seed of the original doctrine against the Christ, the original doctrine against the anointed, the original doctrine against Yeshua of Nazareth. So, John said that every person that doesn't publicly declare that Yeshua the Anointed arrived as a full-grown human, looking and appearing like a man, walking and talking like a man, making decisions for himself, is of the spirit that is against the Christ, against the Anointed, and against Yeshua himself. Folks, those that created, fueled, and continue to drive the baby Jesus accounts and the agenda that goes along with it are identified by John the Apostle and Jeffrey Darty, but by John the Apostle as being of the spirit of Antichrist, being in opposition to the original teachings and work of Yeshua. Secondly, those that support it share this opposition, whether they realize it or not. Now, I'm not talking about don't say Merry Christmas. I'm not talking about don't have a Christmas tree. I'm not talking about don't have presents. In fact, I'm of the opposite opinion. If you heard me on Coast to Coast, I said, 11 months out of the year, we hate each other. 11 months out of the year, we're nasty to each other. 11 months out of the year, we're giving each other the finger. 11 months out of the year, we're cussing each other out. And for 1 month, and of course it might be a little more, a little less, you know what I'm saying. For 1 month, you walk down the street, and instead of somebody ignoring you, they say Merry Christmas. Instead of them giving you the finger, they say Merry Christmas. Instead of them saying screw you, they say Merry Christmas. I don't care if you're a Jew. I don't care if you're a Muslim. I don't care if you're Catholic, Protestant, atheist, red, yellow, black, white. I don't care what you are. For the next few weeks, if somebody says Merry Christmas to you, just say Merry Christmas back. It's not going to break your face. Just say Merry Christmas back. I don't care if you don't celebrate Christmas. I don't care if it's against your religion. They're just trying to be nice. For once in this year, in this world, we have some good harmony, some good juju, some good feeling flowing. Just say Merry Christmas. And if you're one of these holy, sanctified, so holy, I can't believe you're still here on the earth, so holy that when you walk on water, you don't even get your socks wet. If somebody says to you, Happy Holidays, don't be that idiot. Just say, Happy Holidays. Don't try to ruin the good juju by saying, oh, well, I don't accept that. Merry Christmas is all I want to say. How dare you say Happy Holidays? Only say Merry Christmas to me, you scum! Don't be that stupid, ignorant fool. If they say Happy Holidays, say Happy Holidays. And you can also say, and Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I tend to cover it all. Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas, and a prosperous New Year. That's what I say. That way, one of two things happen. I make everybody happy or I piss everybody off. And I'm okay with either one of those options during the Yuletide season. So I'm not saying lay aside or do away with a time of year where peace on earth and goodwill towards men reigns. I'm not saying do away with the joyous celebration and the trees and the lights and the gifts and the love and the dinners. And I'm not saying do away with that at all. I'm saying do away with the lies, the foolishness, and the errors that for 2,000 years have hid the real meaning of Christmas from us. And the real glory and the real honor of Christmas comes and shows itself when we blow away all of this garbage. John knew about the baby Jesus material. John knew about the UFO, ET, and alien imagery. John knew about the hijacking of other religions' gods. And John countered them forcibly by showing that Yeshua bypassed infancy in Bethlehem or anywhere else and appeared as a fully grown man. He even goes so far as to clearly state that John the Baptist is the greatest man ever born of a woman. John said that. This clearly shows that Yeshua was not born of a woman, unless you're prepared to declare that John the Baptist was superior to Yeshua. Folks, the story we've been told for 2,000 years is not textually sound, and the story we've been told for 2,000 years is not logically sound. And it's filled with alien imagery. And it's filled with plagiarism. And in addition, the objective historical record for the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem is non-existent. All available evidence shows that the baby Jesus Bethlehem story is an invention of forces opposed to Yeshua. And Yeshua said, and you want to know the true message of Christmas, the true glory of Christmas? Here it is. Yeshua himself said in John 6:63, It's the Spirit that quickens. The flesh profiteth nothing. The words I speak to you, they are spirit and they are life. That's the Barack Obama version. The Spirit that quickeneth. Yeshua said it is the Spirit. And it has the definite article, which means it's my Spirit. So Yeshua says it's my Spirit that is life-giving. It's my Spirit that gives life. He said the flesh profits nothing. My flesh, my body, my human nature, my materiality, my flesh of human origin is of no benefit, he said. Listen to what he said. My spirit gives life. My flesh, my body, my human nature is of no benefit. His flesh, his body, his human nature. We're inundated by stories of how he was born, where he was born, how he died, how he rose from the dead, how he's coming again. That's nothing new. It's not even unique in religious history. It's happened over and over and over again. A virgin born, crucified, buried, resurrected Savior is so common that it's historically cliche. This is why Yeshua himself went out of his way to point out that his body, his flesh, his human nature is of no benefit. It doesn't matter if he was born as a baby or not. It doesn't matter when or where that event took place. The things about his flesh are irrelevant. The message is what he wants us to focus on today. That's exactly opposite of what Christianity does today. They're carrying on the tales of old gods and other saviors. Yeshua wanted to break that mold and focus on his unique message. The powers that be, the powers that created the alien agenda in the New Testament, the powers that created the baby Bethlehem story, the powers that created all of the plagiarism have spent 2,000 years trying to drag Yeshua into the old pantheon and leaving his message trampled underfoot. What message? The message that we're not born with original sin, but we have the spark of divinity within. Yeshua said, these words that I've spoken to you, they are the essence of spiritual existence. It's my spirit that gives life. My flesh, my body, my human nature, my material essence are of no benefit. The message I've spoken to you is life, the essence of spiritual existence. The great Christmas message is that Yeshua, the Elohim himself, manifested in human form, and he has enlightened every single person that's ever come into the world. That's in John chapter 1. And he has given us the way and the truth that leads to life and life more abundant. The way is the greatest of all the ways of human spirituality combined. The truth is the greatest truths of all of human spirituality combined. And by walking in these ways and walking in these truths, we can find life and life more abundant. Free and enlightened, not bound and indoctrinated. That's the true message of Christmas. The baby Jesus Bethlehem stories, the alien agenda, the plagiarism, that was all invented to dim this great story and to get you out of enlightenment and to get you back into indoctrination and to get you out of freedom and get you back into bondage. That's why only half of the Gospels wrote about it. That's why only 53 verses out of 8,000 are about it. That's why John clearly said, and half of the Gospels clearly said that John the Baptist was the greatest man ever born. That's why John clearly taught that Yeshua wasn't born a baby. He came as a fully grown man. And that's why he said anybody that teaches that Bethlehem story is of the spirit of Antichrist, or they are against the original message of Yeshua. That message that you're not born with sin, you have the spark of divinity within, and that Yeshua is completely unique among all of the saviors and gods of the pantheon. He's completely unique because he took the best of all of the rest, the best of the ways, the best of their truths, and crafted it into a way that leads to life and life more abundantly. And that's what they don't want you to know. That's why they don't want to audit the New Testament. And that's why we are. That's what we're here for. I believe in the hereafter, and you know what I'm here after. I'm here after bringing you the truth. Yeshua said, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. If you don't know it, you can't be freed. This truth has been true for 2,000 years, but we just haven't known it. And because we haven't known it, we haven't been set free. Truth by itself doesn't set you free, and Yeshua didn't say it does. He said you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. I want you to be free. I can't set you free. Even Yeshua can't set you free. What sets you free is you knowing the truth and applying the truth. That sets you free. That's why Yeshua said prophetically, how lovely on the mountains are the feet of them that bring good news. We're bringing you the good news. We're bringing you the truth. That's what the Christian Whistleblower is all about, my friend. That's what the Christian Whistleblower is all about, my brother, my sister. I want to wish you happy holidays, Merry Christmas, a joyous and prosperous New Year. And above all else, I want to wish you that you would learn the truth and allow the truth to set you free. Be blessed, be healthy. May you discover your basic purpose and your dreams begin to come true. But above all else, I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower, urging you to unindoctrinate yourself.
Stay connected with the Christian Whistleblower at www.christianwhistleblower.com. On Facebook, follow Jeffrey Daugherty and Jeffrey Daugherty Show, and on Twitter at NC Kabbalah. Visit ChristianWhistleBlower.com today to learn how to create yourself and to live the life you'll love.